Hello, everyone. My name is always Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow. For those listening on Apple Podcast or on Spotify, please leave a rating for the podcast. Now, if you're joining us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Zaid Railoun, a sustainable solutions specialist who also focuses on power. He is a former lecturer and author and also holds a master's in conservation ecology. Zaid, thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me to your show.
Let's jump straight into the meat of it. Tell us your story. Where do you come from? And even outside of work, who is Zaid Railoun? Give us that backstory.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe from a context perspective of where I come from. So I'm originally from the Western Cape, in the Alberg region, called an area called Strand, so a small fisher town. And I grew up all my life there, and then I moved to Joburg about 2 years ago. From an education point of view, I work within the bank, but I don't have a banking background per se, although I'm a banker now. So I originally, not originally, but in my undergrad, I done a environmental water science at UWC, and then I done a master's in conservation ecology at Stellenbosch University. And from a working point of view, I've done a few things in the 6.5 years or 7 years I've been working. First, I was let's call it a researcher at the Stellenbosch University, and I done a PhD proposal to do a PhD in a totally different science. So after I completed my master's, I said to myself, you know what, it's 8 years of doing the same thing. I'm looking for something different, and I ventured into halal science. And the doctor that had the project, he knew me, and then we had done the research. I also did some part-time lecturing in aquaculture for him in the animal science department. And then at the end of that year, I decided, you know what, I don't want to be a doctor in halal science. I'm gonna maybe shift this to somebody else. And then I found it myself at Somerset College in the Somerset West area, between Somerset West and Stellenbosch. And I found myself being a STEM researcher at the school. So again, you know, um, looking at science, technology, economics, and mathematics. And then I thought, let's have a go at teaching as well. And I said to the school, also want to maybe do some classes, biology, geography. I had my experience there for a year. I told myself, I think I'm too young to be a teacher. Then I left there, and then I landed up in infrastructure development. So I worked for a private equity fund also in Somerset West called Investment Fund Africa. And my journey started, it was very interesting. I was actually first a ghostwriter for the CEO of the company. So I wrote all his columns in the newspaper. And within Investment Fund Africa, there was two arms. They had an Debe group, which was focused on BEE projects, think tank projects, and then they had the Investment Fund Africa leg, or arm to it, where they looked at infrastructure projects. And I said to him, you know what, I think I'm a bit tired of this political writing, or not political, but opinion pieces. I'm rather going to want to venture into this. Can I do this? And he says to me, yeah, see where you can find yourself a place there. And I started writing. So because I knew the editors of the different magazines, I said, let me maybe pursue writing about water in my own name, and starting building a brand for myself when it comes to in the water sector. And I started writing articles in Daily Maverick, IOL, trying to push, what we do and what I do there. And eventually I landed up in that infrastructure team. So I was there about, say, 2 years, but I've had many experiences, traveling into Africa, being like a hunter for projects, so trying to acquire projects for the company, and then having the meetings. So I've traveled to Malawi, Kenya, Tanzania, and Ethiopia for projects. And then with that, I also done some research when it comes to infrastructure in Sadak. Also, it was a side job I done with a company. And then I also looked at certain market research projects where I had another side hustle, if I can call it like this show, in America, where I was writing market-related research for a company, and they wanted to know what's it like in the water sector and what's happening on the grassroots when it comes to investment into water infrastructure, and then also how does it affect the social development of projects. And that was 2 years and a bit, and then I met someone, my current boss, and on LinkedIn, and we always discussing, and then he said to me, I think here's a view for a job. Can you apply? And from there I ended up in Standard Bank. So currently, what I do now is I look at the green economy for business and commercial banking. So what the green economy composed for us is wastewater and power, and we try to assist our relationship teams, that holds the relationships with clients, and how to decentralize their businesses when it comes to power, waste, and water. So we're trying to future-proof our clients, and making them sustainable in that journey. And then from an overall personality perspective, very much laid back. Love outdoors, love training, running those things to keep myself sane. And yeah, very family orientated. Because I come from a small town. I think you have a sense of how it is in a small town. It's very interconnected and very close. Yeah, and then trying to enjoy the weather in Joburg now. It's extremely cold, but yeah, that's all it is.
So you described it a little bit in your intro, but for those of us who are uninformed, what does a power and sustainability specialist actually do?
So what we do is we advise on transactions when it comes to renewable energy, energy efficiency, water reuse type of projects, biogas, biomass. So typically, our relationship teams would have these projects maybe with their clients, and then we basically support the application when it comes to our decision making teams, which is our credit teams.
And am I correct that it's generally like bigger corporates and banks who have teams like this? You wouldn't see it in like smaller companies.
So from I think from my view, I think we're the only bank that has the team. We a team of five individuals, three including myself, and then we have two analysts within our team.
Okay, it makes
So
sense.
so basically, my team, we compose of different backgrounds. Myself being an environmental water scientist, my one colleague being an economist, my one colleague being also environmental water scientist, and one being a chemist, and then one being an electrical engineer. So we have a diverse backgrounds when it comes to the different elements. So there's a place for everyone, even in a bank.
Okay. And also you mentioned earlier, I mean, you did your undergrad at UWC, and then and then you did your honors slash masters at Stellenbosch. That's quite a change of scenery. How did you
Mhm.
handle the change?
So it was, I think, so I did my honors as well at UWC, and then what happened was I went to work, and when I got to work, I realized I actually don't know enough. To me at that time, I thought to myself, I wanted to understand more the application of knowledge, and the only thing that made sense to me was a master's. And how I got to that master's was I originally applied at the city of Cape Town for a job, and I was already working for a company at the time, but City of Cape Town then came back very late. And they came back, but the guy that originally came back, he's not there anymore. He said to me, here is this job, but I'm proposing you must do this master's at Stellenbosch University, because it was a close friend of his that was looking for students in the project, and that's just how the stars lined up. I was seeking something more with knowledge, and this project just came. So I ended up, leaving after 3 months and said, okay, I'm going to do this master's at Stellenbosch. So the adjustment was quite, it's very different, but also a good experience to have, especially at the postdoc, a master's level type of, qualification. It's very different, but I think, if I look at my career journey, if I look at now, speaking of my studies, that different experiences, helped me shape me where I am today, in their own sense or in their own right.
And you talk about the different experiences. I mean, looking at your LinkedIn profile, I see researcher, freelance writer, author, lecturer, investments. Is there anything you don't do?
Yeah. So I don't know, like, I'd like to do more, but I think in 6.5 years, going to 7, I've packaged a lot, when it comes to different things. And my approach was at the beginning, I had no real plan. I just went for everything I really enjoyed: research, writing, in networking. That was my three, themes. I like researching, I like networking, and I'll find my path. Guided by the Almighty. So that was definitely my go-to. I enjoy writing, I enjoy reading, and then let's see where it brings me together. So if you look at my journey in my career, all of those elements, brought me to a point. It's probably not the end, but it's a good,
like
it's a
I
good,
like I explained that
yeah.
research, your three main
Mm,
your cores. As long as it touches those cores, you're happy. That explains a lot. It actually eliminates some of the
mm,
questions that I was going to ask you. But
yeah.
for the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end. So please add your questions to the comment section now so that we don't miss them.
Okay.
You've been based in Joburg for the last 2 years, after spending most of your career in, let's call it, the Greater Cape Town area. There's lots of people who are either just moved to Joburg or considering moving to Joburg. Um, Talk to us about the move itself. Was it difficult, and did you have any assistance from your employer?
Yeah, no, so definitely I have a very supportive boss. Before he was my boss, he was very supportive in that way. So from an emotional, transition perspective, because I think that's what you need. Remember, I moved from, Strand, Gordons Bay area, Somerset West, the pace is totally different from Cape Town. And when I came to Joburg, it was like times 10. So that for me was a big adjustment. When I even how quickly the people moved and walked. My first 2 weeks, I was sweating in my suit, and I was like, I think I'm quite fit, but I'm sweating because they were just walking quickly, or rather they're walking very fast. So that adjustment, very much, the support I had, from an internal perspective when it comes to, my colleagues was very important in that they were very supportive, they were always there. So that helped a lot. Maybe to touch the question on the advice you're saying for young people. So I think Joburg for young people is definitely a great start. To make the decision to move from your hometown. It helps you to explore, different sides of you, and then it also Joburg. What Joburg does is it actually keeps you very focused. The main thing stays the main thing. You don't have that, the luxury of life. Like I had the sea, I had the mountains. So that's luxuries. That you could enjoy anytime. So that I don't have now, but I do appreciate it. When I go back home for work or for some holiday. But I think when you're young, you should definitely move out of your hometown. I'm not saying Joburg. Joburg was my destination, but it does help you grow. Your emotional radius, and also you get to answer certain questions of yourself very quickly. You solve yourself very quickly, so you end up getting to your true north, quickly as a young person for the next stage. To be a husband, to be a father. I think it prepares you to move away from home, especially for me at least.
And in terms of integrating into Joburg, has it been easy to make friends and settle in?
Yeah, so luckily, the your friends, your colleagues becomes your friends, in Joburg. Joburg is very, the culture is very different. It's very everyone's very friendly. Everyone's very keen to know what you do. How can they assist you? What do you do for fun? Trying to integrate. So people here they quickly distinguish you from Cape Town. Because there's just a certain, I think vigor. If you're from Cape Town, they know you're from Cape Town. Also, you sound like you're from Cape Town. That's important. So it's very, yeah, it's very adoptable in that way. But then again, the life in Joburg is all about, working hard, doing your craft, and resetting the week and then going again. So as much as you could have that social time, there's also that element of you have to rest because the craft is quite it's quite tiring and enjoyable at the same time. So you know why you're here. When I say why I don't plan on staying forever here, but at least I always have that sense of I know why I'm here. To build a career, to grow myself.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
Mm.
And again, we touched on it a little bit in your build up of explaining how you got to where you got to. But I mean, you had a stint as an investment associate. So, I mean, you come from a power, water, agriculture
Mm.
background, but then you did investments. So, what made you decide to enter the investment industry specifically and then leave again?
So, like I said, it was never my intention to enter the investment realm. I literally was at the time I left Samson College. I was unemployed and I was looking for jobs. And the guy that I applied for a job on LinkedIn, he saw me in the mall, so he remembered my face, and he called me and he said to me, "Didn't you message me on LinkedIn?" I said, "Yes, that's me." And he said to me, "I need. Can you? Oh, he said to me, can you start? When can you start?" I said, "Well, I can start Monday." That was a Saturday. He told me that, and that's how I started. And he said to me, so basically, I think he knew what he needed. I didn't know what I needed. I just needed the job right at that time. But his company was set up in such a way that there was a lot of things you could have done. So as a young person, 2 years now working, and here's a company is one part's the think tank, the next is creating businesses. The other one is looking at infrastructure projects in water, energy, housing. You're always sitting in a room thinking about solutions, thinking about the next business plan. So for me, that was fitting. But like I said, I started as his ghostwriter because I liked writing. That made sense. I was like, the topic is different. I'm writing about GDPs and countries infrastructure. I used to look at countries infrastructure plan and maybe write a fairy tale around the infrastructure plan to make it readable, like a magazine. So that's what I did behind the scenes for him. And then I saw the gap. I was like, I need to align my degree with what is here for me to offer. And the water infrastructure was there, although I don't really come from a water infrastructure. I come from soil science, biology, nematodes, to a point the river flows, but never big infrastructure. We covered, especially in conservation ecology, it's to do all the science, riparian, which is, essentially the side of the river and, inflow stream dynamics. And so I said to me, okay, this, looks quite appealing infrastructure, water infrastructure. I'm going to read about it and start building my name around this to see if I can attract, because our role was to attract investment business cases, and that's where I started bringing in these projects. And then at the time we had a boss as well in Spain, and he said to me, he didn't even know me. He said to me, "But who are you? Because you are bringing the meetings." So let's put you in this team that goes to Africa. And that's where I basically put the three together, read, write, and network. And since then that's still my three principles that helps me get to A to B.
It's like a motto, rewrite the network. Love it. I don't see any
mm,
questions coming through, so it sounds like you've answered all their questions.
mm.
Is there any last few words from you? Anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
No, I don't think. I think I've I've covered everything that that's my journey. That's how it was put out for me. So I'm just following that journey.
I think then that's a great way to end. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Zaid, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you, Dave, too. It was quite good actually speaking about it. I don't always speak about it.
Now people learn. Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.